Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, and to those at home listening online. Please be seated while Councillor Abetz delivers the blessing. Thank you.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for the opportunity to meet together this evening, and as we commence our council meeting, we ask that you would graciously grant us wisdom and insight and commitment to doing what is best for the residents of our city and the well-being of our state. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Councillor Abetz. Before we begin, I will acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands of the Whadjuk Noongar people and pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. It is now 6:59, where I declare the meeting open. Welcome, former Mayor, Mrs Olwensell. Also, the disclaimer, members of the public are cautioned against taking any action on council decisions on items in which they may have an interest until such time as they've seen a copy of the minutes of the meeting or have been advised in writing by city staff. Record of attendance. Councillor Dalton is an apology. Other than that, we're all here. Yes. Disclosures of interest, are there any? No. Announcements, presiding member. Just want to welcome you all back to the start of the year, to our first official ordinary council meeting. Hope you've all had a nice break, and I look forward to getting a lot achieved this year. So, welcome back. Also to let councillors know that I attended the funeral of Mr John Bowler. He was one of the founders for the Ellisbrook Valley Friends Group. Spent many years up there rehabilitating that site. He was an absolute treasure in the area, and also he was a long-term member of the Men's Shed, keen photographer, keen artist, and contributed a lot to the gardens at the Men's Shed. So I went along to his funeral, and the family were grateful for they've got a plaque up at the Ellisbrook Valley for his wife, and they're hoping to put one up for Mr Bowler as well. So, very good. That is all I have. Any reports from delegates? Councillor Good, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Lyons. Councillors, last Wednesday I was able to attend a meeting of the Gosnells District Neighbourhood Watch, so their first meeting for the year, and it was a good meeting in terms of agenda set out for the year of the things they wish to do with the local community, and it's just encouraging to see they've still got their passion and energy to drive whatever things that can be done, particularly in support of the safe city. And we discussed issues in terms of obviously local crime statistics, etc., where we're headed, but also the neighbourhood meet and greet. So it was encouraging, and I'm hoping there'll be a good year for 2024 for the Gosnells District Neighbourhood Watch. So it was a good meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Any further reports? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'd just like to recall to councillors last year, you'll recall that we attended the Maddington Homestead site as a means of just getting a close hand look at the progression of the reconstruction of what's an invaluable historical building in our city. And during the course of that visit, it became apparent that what became apparent was that a lot of the old timber, a lot of the 180-year-old timber from the old building was getting reused in the new construction. And but what became apparent was a good deal of the remnants would not be suitable for construction, for actual construction work. So we just inquired on the day whether or not it'd be possible to quarantine some of those remnants, because we know that in our city exists some very talented people who work with wood, and so we got an undertaking that would occur, and then subsequent to that we contacted the Gosnells Men's Shed, and through their craftsmanship they've produced some unbelievably brilliant pens from the wood, from the timber, from those timber remnants that could not be used. And it'll be my pleasure after this evening's ordinary council meeting to present to each of you councillors one of those pens. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. And yes, Alan Holloway, a very talented man to do those pens up for the councillors. Any more reports, Councillor Zhang?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Director of Community Engagement Director Blake. The team has delivered another successful Chinese Lunar New Year celebration last Saturday. On behalf of the residents from the court community, especially from the Asian community, I would like to give special thanks to staff Nick, Zoe, and Greg for their hard work from the preparation, setting up, and all the way late at night on Saturday despite the weather. Thank you so much. This successful event shows how diverse our city is and also shows the community that as a council we value our court members and multiculturalism and celebrate other cultural events and festivals as one community. So well done, City of Gosnells. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Zhang, and I'll add to that in that thank you, Councillor Zhang, for your time as MC. 4 hours Councillor Zhang was there emceeing that event in the heat. So thank you so much for that. That was above and beyond. Thank you. Now move on to question time. The first question is from David Beat of 15 Madison Street, Southern River. Would you come forward, please? David?
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to thank the council for letting me express my concerns with the way Madison Street at the moment is at the time. Reading through the information that I've been supplied by the council, it's agreed that it's a high-speed road. It's used by heavy vehicles, and also this disregard for the speed limit. So my question is to the council, why isn't Madison Street have a speed limit of 60 kilometres instead of not recognise it as a residential area with a speed limit of 50?
I'll ask the Director for Infrastructure to respond to your question, Mr. Bate. Thank you. Mr. Glover.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Speed zoning for roads in Western Australia is determined by Main Roads, WA, and they base that on the current use and surrounding environment of the road in question. The speed zone is currently 60 kilometres per hour west of Home Street because the area is still predominantly not built up. East of Home Street has been reduced to 50 kilometres per hour because this area now through development is more predominantly built up. As the development along Madison Street increases, the city will make applications to Main Roads, we apply to them, to review the speed zone similar to how we have done in Southern River Road and in Wharton Road recently. So as the developments happen, and not too far from now, we'll be making application to Main Roads.
Yeah, just regarding that.
Sorry, Mr. Beat, you just have to move on to your next question.
Well, it hasn't been covered, has it? The area around Southern River Road has been dropped to 70 kilometres from 80. It's a 4-lane carriageway, and the only option for the new estate and the tech park is these two roads. And the average speed down Madison, 73 kilometres.
As the Director did answer, he said you're going to be making application to Main Roads to reduce that speed in the near future.
All right. Okay, the second question is, when will Madison Street from Ramford Road to Holmes Road be upgraded to a safe standard?
Did you want to finish that a little bit, or?
Well, for traffic now, and in the future when the new residential area development's open, and the tech park.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you. Anticipated that the Madison Street fronting the new development will be constructed to urban standard within 12 months. You can see the construction is underway on the development at the moment. Section between the development and Ranford Road is currently being designed by city staff, and we're looking for potential construction in around about 2 years' time for that section through to Ranford. With respect to the rest of the road, the city has depended on a developer to develop that as the land is developed adjacent to that road, although there have been times when we've gone in ahead of that, but at this point in time we don't have plans for the balance of the road.
Okay.
Thank you for your question. And I would ask the Director Glover if he might put into writing what that means with regards to the developers and how that funding comes in, and send that to, you could send that to Mr. Beak. Thank you. Thank you. We'll give it some more information to you. The next question is from Tracy O'Neill from 217 Kenwick Road. Thank you, Mrs. O'Neill. Did you put them in order? She's got 8 questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is a building in the Mooksy Precinct 1 that has a number of exhaust stacks. What exactly is in the dust that spews out of these stacks showering the nearby residential area?
We're going to take it on notice to find out what's which building you're referring to exactly, and also to find out exactly what is coming out of that. Thank
I'll
you.
just drop the next two one after each other because I assume they'll go on notice as well.
Yep.
Is there a limit on how much these stacks can release? And do any of these samples become toxic when released in dust form?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next questions are from Mrs. Carrie Fisher. If you would, she's from Gosnells. Come forward, Mrs. Fisher. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Congratulations to all the newly elected councillors. It's been a while since I've been here, and I'd like to thank Glenda Blake and her team for all the assistance that they gave the Real Life Community Services in regards to the funding grant that we obtained from Council so that we could hold the event. Thank you very much, and thank you, councillors. Madam Mayor, my questions are directed to Mr. Ian Cowie, through you. There are a number of questions, but they're not pointed into questions. Mabel Davis Park is an issue. Is the CEO aware that the entrance used by council vehicles is currently churning up the sand and the remediation of the said entrances?
Mr. CEO, thank you.
If I may just interrupt you, if I may go through all of the questions and Mr. Cowie can put them in writing for me. Unfortunately, I have a husband with a medical condition and I have to rush.
Okay, so you just want to read your questions out and then we'll have them all written to you.
If you would be so kind.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I really do have to get home.
Yes, that's fine, thank you.
B, is the CEO aware that people parking on the verge at the cul-de-sac, at the park, at the entrance on Morrison Street is also being churned up by vehicles? And also, whereas the do not parking on verge signs, I'm sure that's not going to cost council too much more. Is the CEO aware that the fuel load build-up along the walkway on Windsor Drive is excessive, including bags of rubbish, litter, and other waste materials that are in piles and leaves and branches that are material for an arsonist or whoever by? Fortunately, we have the former mayor here, who was very well aware of the issues that I raised in 2002 to 2004 at this council, and it required the attention of the then Liberal Minister, Mr. Rob Johnson's intervention as Minister for FISA, to organise an independent officer to come out and review that area, which was classified as catastrophic My next question to the CEO. Is the CEO aware of the large number of seedlings of jacaranda along the sections owned by both the Department of Planning and the City of Gosnells, which has a large sum of money spent on it regarding replanting of the waterline along this section of Windsor Drive shoreline? We have an unbelievable number of weed trees that have established themselves in a catastrophic fire zone. Recently, spraying was done to the area and a lot of plants were killed. It was then replanted again. Why do I know this?
Mrs Fisher, I'll just ask you to move on with your actual questions.
These are questions I'm wanting answers to.
Yes.
So I can give every single person in Windsor Drive, Brabham Street and Lawrence Street an answer to their question.
Yes, and
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Very much. Is the CEO... Sorry. When will a tap be installed at Mabel Davis Park near the new barbecue, which is absolutely wonderful, so users can wash down the barbecue in between council cleanings? The infrastructure is currently in place and just requires a tap. I'm more than happy to pay for it. When is the dedication plaque going to be replaced after being requested for at least 3 years in honour of Mabel Davis? And lastly, why has all this I have raised been allowed to occur in our area? You have the photos that I have sent you as documentary evidence of the disgrace this area has become. Thank you very much for allowing me the extra time. And councillors.
Thank you, Mrs Fisher. Moving on, we'll ask David Murphy from 84 Combine Loop Martin to come forward, please.
Thanks. I've got two questions. In relation to the Sutherland Sea small playground in tonight's agenda, is there designs available of the playground that has been proposed within the $60,000 budget?
I think it's just an allocation of budget and then the design will be done after that. So there is no design as yet.
Oh, yeah, just the way it read, it said it was going to be immediately ordered, so the question was there. In the last 4 days, there has been 2 significant multi-car collisions on the corner of Mills Road West and Warbler Drive, resulting in cars ending up in the ditch, impacting the waterline. Is there any options the council could look into for limiting the speed of cars and trucks in that vicinity?
I'll get the Director Glover to give you a technical response to that. Thank you.
Yeah, the most recent one was 45 minutes ago before this meeting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a four-car pile-up in the corner.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we'll need to do some investigation into this one and I will get back to David as soon as we've got that information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no public statements. Thank you, Mr Murphy. There are no public statements. So we move on to confirmation of the minutes. Can I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Dewhurst, seconded by Councillor Baines. Thank you. And it's a show of hands for your voting if there's no questions on this. No, thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on to receiving of petitions and presentations. Councillor Betts, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have here what I call a slightly irregular petition. It's not actually on the council format, but it comes with a very long letter to go with it. So I'll just summarise it. Basically what it's asking for is that the Chinese elm verge trees along Lower Hall Gardens, Aldenham Drive and Streamside Drive be removed and replaced with less invasive trees. It's signed by 25 signatories, all from Lower Hall Gardens, except for 2 from Aldenham Drive and 1 from Streamside Drive. I would move that the petition be received and the staff prepare a report for council.
Mayor Hort to second that. Councillors, if you please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on, Councillor Baines. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also have a petition. Mine is from a Mr. Bradley Woods of 67 Millstream Drive, Southern River. And the petition reads, to the Council of the City of Gosnells, we, the residents of Millstream Drive, Southern River, petition the Council and ask that the Council cleans up the Bush Forever verge on Millstream Drive, with 16 signatures on that. May I suggest that the petition be received and referred to the CEO for action?
Seconder for that. Councillor Lloyd to second that. Councillors, if you could please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. Any further presentations, petitions? Councillor Williamson, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a petition which is a combination of a paper version and electronic version. It reads, we, the undersigned electors of the City of Gosnells, request an enclosed dog park within the suburb of Kenwick for the following reasons. For the residents of Kenwick to have a safe, spacious area to exercise and socialise their dogs. The petition initiator was Tracy O'Neill, and there's 76 signatures on the paper version and 48 on the electronic version. Thank you. So I'll move that we receive the petition and request a report back to Council. Thank you.
Thank you. The seconder for that, Councillor Zhang to second that. Councillors, will you please cast your vote? Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. Sorry, are there any applications of leave of absence? No. There are no questions of which due notice have been given. No items to bring forward. Reports moving on. 13.1.1, the Major Projects Progress Report. Can I get a mover for this, please? Deputy Mayor Hort, seconded by Councillor Betts. Any questions or debate on this item, councillors? No? If you could please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on to 13.2.1, the modification to Local Planning Policy 4.11, Public Art. Can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Baines to move this. Councillor Betts to second. Is there any debate or questions on this item? Councillor Williamson. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment to this recommendation, which reads, I, Councillor Serena Williamson, propose the following, that Council amends the recommendation to add the following wording after advertises the modifications for a period of 21 days, subject to the draft policy contained in Appendix 13.2.1b being modified to delete wording. This policy does not apply to industrial development in Section 1 application of the policy for the following reason. Industrial development areas abut residential and mixed-use areas and therefore warrant the inclusion of art installations as a contribution to improving the public realm and the well-being of employees and residents in the industrial area. Thank you.
Deb is happy to second that. Councillor Williamson, would you like to speak to it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the difference between our current public art policy and that of other cities came to my attention when I was sitting on JDAP. We had industrial developments that were in the City of Gosnells where they were exempt from public art contributions, and the same development sitting on the City of Kalamunda side was then having to pay public art contributions. When I looked a bit further into it, I found many other councils did apply public art contributions to industrial developments, and the reasons were that it's not necessarily needing to be a statute, it can be having a nice facade to the outside of the building, rather than them just being plain concrete walls. It's to improve the amenity through your industrial area. One of the important things to remember is that many people come into those areas and they spend all day there. They have lunch breaks, they have tea breaks. For them to be in a nice environment is important for their well-being as well. And areas like Maddington and Kenwick, they're abutting, they're residential areas that are joining on to these industrial developments. And so if we were to collect a public art contribution for that, it means we would have money to be able to improve that area and improve the amenity to those adjoining residential areas as well. So I'll ask you to support this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Deputy Mayor Hort, as a seconder.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, I want to speak in support of this. When Councillor Williamson raised this as an issue that she discovered at the DAP meetings last year, I couldn't believe it. It makes so much sense to go down this path. I'm very supportive. I think it's a good move forward. Many of our industrial areas are the entry to our city as well, and it's a great opportunity to demonstrate to people the type of infrastructure and art that we want to have in place. So I think we've discussed it before as a council, that we want these nice entry statements, and I think this goes to a long way to addressing some of that. So looking forward to seeing this passed if it gets the support of council, but I'm certainly in support. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is anyone wanting to speak against this motion? Yes. So speaking for and questions now. Yes, thank you, Councillor Good.
Madam Mayor, through the to the Director of Planning, are there any comments from a policy point of view, obviously from a development perspective, in terms of what's been approved in the past versus going forward? Do you see any issues or ramifications arising from this?
Thank you, Councillor Good. I'll ask the Director for Planning, Mr Terelenk, to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's probably not any great implications because most developers these days are probably dedicating that amount of their project budget to making their buildings look good and competitive and creating an identity for them. And certainly some of the developers we've spoken to in the last few years are really putting an emphasis on that so that they can attract Tier 1 tenants. They want to provide Tier 1 buildings.
Any further? Thank you. Any other debate on this item? Councillor Dewhurst and then Councillor Betts. Thank you.
Just a question.
Councillor Dewhurst first, sorry.
Sorry, I thought I got taller then. This is only just on new developments, so this is not someone who's on Davidson Street in Maddington who's going to be spending $500,000 on making his building a little bit bigger or something like that, is it? I've got a couple of questions.
I could probably answer. It's for $2 million developments, new ones, over $2 million.
Over $2 million. So new development or just development?
Thank you, Mr Terelenk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If the addition was over $2 million in value, then the policy could be called in, but it would need to be assessed each on its individual merits.
So if someone was spending, the question would be is if someone was spending $2 million internally, we wouldn't probably put that policy in onto them, would we?
That's correct, yes. That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, so when I read this, I'm actually in support of it, of the motion. Actually, it's very smart. I do like it, but when I first read it, I was against it because I hate regulation and policy being put on by any tier of government, being state, local or federal. I'm probably a little bit judgmental at the moment because every time that something seems to come out of state or the federal government in regards to apologies, here we go, to legislations and all sorts of things, that regulation that comes out of them, they seem to be just regulate when things aren't going well, or they just throw money at it and regulate it and say, like, let's just do this, and then find out where it doesn't actually work. And there's a number of examples that I could list now, but I wouldn't want to embarrass our stable federal friends. But this one here is actually, the question that I asked during the workshop was that, well, what are we doing now? Is it working well now? And it is working well now. So I'd take it that this we're doing it well. So and I have no problems with us putting a policy against it, as long as it's not seen and we're not actually going to be grabbing money from people to do things that they actually encourage to actually beautify their own part of part of their lots, and I've got no problems with that whatsoever. So Councillor Williamson, it's, when I saw it, didn't like it at all. Having reflected on it and looked at it, it's good. It's actually a very smart policy. So thank you very much. Thanks very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. Any further debate on this item? Oh, yeah, Councillor Betts, sorry, thank you.
Just a question, what constitutes public art? If it's simply that a warehouse, instead of having bland concrete walls, perhaps uses some aesthetically pleasing cladding, does that constitute artwork? I would have thought it doesn't. But if they were to get an artist to do a mural, I would have thought that would constitute artwork. So who actually makes the decision as to what constitutes artwork and what doesn't? And because the beautiful, to make, say, a warehouse look more beautiful by putting certain things into the frontage design, from my perspective, I think, would be good enough for me for public art, in inverted commas, but does it actually constitute public art? If somebody could clarify that, would be helpful.
And art is in the eye of the beholder, I believe. You'll ask the cactus in the city. Director Terrellet will give you a more technical response than that.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. We've got urban design expertise in-house, and typically these buildings are put together by professional architects. So the combination of that experience often leads to a palette of things that give the building a lift. It could be colour, it could be murals, it could be textures. Sometimes it's relief panels and the way that shadow lines are treated. I've seen some buildings treated with public art through light installations as well, and variable colourways there. So there's a number of ways to achieve that point of difference that help to create the identity of the building. So if it was going to be bland and similar to lots of other buildings and very generic, you'd probably be less inclined to accept that it had some artistic value. But if it adds character to the area and identity to that building, it probably makes a positive contribution.
Thank you, Director. Any further questions or debate on this item? Councillor Williamson, did you want to close? Okay, councillors, you will be voting on the amendment. If you could please cast your vote. Thank you, councillors. That has been carried. We now put the amendment back with the original item. Is there any further debate or questions on the original item? No? Councillors, will you please cast your vote? Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on to the report on the petition for Madison Street traffic calming. Can I get a mover? Councillor Deputy Mayor Hort to move. Some second. Thank you, Councillor Zhang. Any questions or debate? Deputy Mayor, sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Two questions. One is, if it's passed tonight and obviously supported in the budget, how soon can we see these traffic calming measures put in place on Madison Street?
Thank you, and I'll ask the Director for Infrastructure, Mr Glover, to respond. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the installation is a standard installation for the city now, with suppliers or everything arranged, so we can place order as soon as we have the budget capability to do that, and these days it's around 6 to 8 weeks for delivery.
Thank you.
Final question, Madam Mayor. How much do we anticipate spending on this measure for Madison Street in the next budget?
Thank you, Director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, we've allocated $110,000 for the project.
Councillor Williamson?
Could I just clarify that's 110,000 to just put up these speed signs?
Director Glover, smiley faces.
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is correct. It is a long road, so there is actually a number of signs that would be applied.
Councillor Williamson?
Thank you. I just also had some additional questions. Will the city be notifying the police that speed is an issue on this road?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we will, and we do regularly liaise with the police service where we have issues with speeding.
So next question.
Thank you. Are there any other speed reduction measures that could be implemented on this road for a similar cost or to get a better outcome?
Thank you, Director Glover.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the only speed reduction response that we would have of similar cost would probably be speed pillows. Probably a little excessive in this stage. We have had a gradual reduction in speed over a few years, and we're quite confident with the experience we've had elsewhere that we'll have a similar reduction on this project.
Councillor Williamson?
Sorry, one final question. Is this just a stage one, and will this be monitored? And then if it continues to be a speed problem with this signage, will we look at the next step?
Thank you, Director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, absolutely. We regularly carry out surveys where we've put in this particular treatment. One of the great things about this treatment is it is easily relocated if necessary, and also if we need to, we would be coming back to council with a proposal for further traffic management responses.
Thank you. Councillor Good, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Also questions through the Director. It's got here in the report that similar signs have already been used with positive speed reduction results on Shreve Road, Canning Vale, Bickley Road, Kenwick and Federation Parade, Gosnells. So they're the only 3 locations at the moment where you've got the smiley faces. So this will become smiley face number 4 on Madison. And you're saying it's $110,000 for Madison. Were the other ones similarly expensive, or are they considerably cheaper to install?
Thank you, Director.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's really down to the number of signs that we allocate. The other projects were around about half the cost because there was about half the signs.
Okay. A smiley face on Stanland Street in Orange Grove.
So we have 4 in the city.
Yes.
So the report should detail the 4th one?
There is. I get the smiley face all the time, Mr Glover.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
What I'm getting at is 3, 4, potentially 5, 6, 7, wherever draw the line, and at $110,000, I keep thinking, come on, Mr Police Officer, go and put your multi-nova radar and do the exact opposite. Rather than us ratepayers spending the money, can either us or give us a camera and we charge it, but turn it into, well, if you want a speed, fine, you'll get paid the price. But for ratepayers to continually have to fork out these monies, and bear in mind every sign we install eventually wears out and you've got to replace them. They've all got to be upgraded. There's always, or damage. And all I'm thinking is $110,000. Wow, that's a lot of money. Can you see that, okay, crystal ball, 5 years from now, could there be 10 in the city? Could it be 15? What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Councillor Good. Director Glover, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I suppose in response to that question, one of the most successful treatments across Western Australia in terms of reduction of speed has been the blanket 50-kilometre speed zone. In most cases, no signage installed whatsoever. It's just been a cultural shift in the driving public. One of the benefits of this is if you do the right thing, someone smiles at you, human beings tend to respond to that, and you get the opposite if you don't. We've had on average around about a 10% reduction in speed where we've applied these signs. Don't anticipate it's going to be all over the place, but for sites like this one and the other ones that we have done, it's appropriate. To give some sort of indication, we have done some mini roundabouts and chicane type treatments elsewhere in the city, and in those instances we've spent close to $1 million for one street.
That's a good question. Thank you.
Oh, a statement, if I may, Madam Mayor. I've only asked questions so far. If you'll allow it.
Move this. Didn't you move it?
Yes, you did.
You moved it.
So I'll be closing then, sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Dewhurst.
Thanks so much, Madam Mayor. Yeah, look, I fully support these street signs coming up with smiley faces. I do. If it was for chicanes or speed bumps, I wouldn't, because, as you know, we seem to put them in and a couple of years later we pull them back out again because people complain about them. The question I have is that how are we going to manage this if this becomes an issue with the local member for Southern River, who obviously advocates for chicanes going in, then a couple of years later he advocates for them to go out, that these illumination devices don't shine into people's houses, and we've had one complaint already, I know we have, So how are we going to strategically place these so they're not going to be shining into people's houses? Or is there guards that we can put on down the sort of side guards? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr Glover, would you mind responding to that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The signs have LED lighting in the red or the green. It's directional light that runs parallel to the road. Basically, if you're to the side of that sign and not driving on the road, you can hardly see it at all. So in terms of any spill from that, it's non-existent.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Betts. Just for the record, Mr Glover, the petition has asked for, what does it ask for? Local traffic only signage, and that hasn't been addressed in the report, so I wonder if you would publicly state if we can or can't have local traffic only signage on that area. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and I do apologise for that oversight. The provision of local traffic only signs would not be supported by either the main roads or the city because the road is a distributor class road linking Ranford Road to Home Street. So unfortunately, by definition, cannot be prescribed for local traffic only.
Okay, thank you.
We'll notify the petitioner of that as well.
Councillor Betts.
Councillors have probably heard me say this several times, but for $100,000, for less than $100,000, the city could actually purchase a multi-nova camera. And unfortunately, the police department or the state government won't allow local governments to have multi-novas. And yet here we go spending hundreds of thousands of dollars when in fact if we had portable multi-novas or that we could put into fixed boxes like they have at traffic lights, the speed cameras that they have at traffic light intersections, most of the time they're actually not in there because they keep moving them around because they haven't got enough of them. Eventually they will have it in there. But perhaps I'll need to test the feeling of the meeting at a future time for us to actually move a motion calling on the state government to allow local governments to purchase multi-novas and use them on streets where the police never do. And while we may not raise massive amounts of revenue, I think it would have a really positive impact on reducing speed where people know that even in these sort of relatively minor roads, they've got a good chance of getting caught. And it would actually generate revenue rather than costing ratepayers. So perhaps I might do that in the future. Thank you.
Any further, you'll be closing, Councillor Hort, Deputy Mayor Hort. Is there any further debate or questions on this item? No. Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A wonderful advocacy position, I think, for the city, Councillor Abetz. I like the sound of that. I think I just want to bring my closing statements just to bring back to the cause of the petition. We had lots of issues on Madison Street, so many that we've had our residents in that area and those that use that area petitioning us to say, hey, it's dangerous, we need you to do something here. So I think it's really good that, you know, despite the options being varied and potentially very, very expensive, that the city staff have come up with something that, although still expensive, not as exorbitant as some of the other prices we might see for traffic calming. So I think this is a really good step forward. It allows us to be reactive if we do find that it's not doing the right job, and we can take next steps if required. But I think it's a step in the right direction, and I look forward to hopefully this council supporting it here today so that we can give these residents some assurance as what's going on. The one thing I wanted to add into the mix is that I had a couple people contact me who really wanted to sign the petition, people who frequent the area, who have puppies in puppy school and daycare and all those kinds of things in that local area, but they couldn't sign the petition because they don't live in the city of Gosnells. They just live across the road, or they regularly travel there, and they wanted to put their support behind this. And I think that's something we should maybe look at in the future to see whether or not our petitions can include, although not as important as our residents, people who visit the area who also have a claim to some of these important issues that come up in our petitions. So something to consider in the future. Maybe I'll bring that up at the same meeting Councillor Betts proposes multi-novas. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. If we could all please cast our vote on this one. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Thank you. Thank you. Still carried though. Thank you. Moving on to 13.3.2, the proposed extension of the lease of Tom Bateman House located on lot 501 Wilfred Road, Thornley to Baseball WA. Councillor McDonald to move that. Councillor Dewhurst to second that. Councillor McDonald, do you have any? Councillor Dewhurst? Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A few of the councillors were able to visit this site about a year ago, was it? Or so it was the beginning of the baseball season. And I must confess, I was really impressed in the work that had been done by Baseball WA and the investment over the last 5 years. So a pat on the back to Baseball WA. It's always a good opportunity to look at these leases and say, should we really be charging for this? Because it's essentially an office space. If there were any other area, any other business, that's exactly what they would have to do. I think there's something really unique about this house. It's heritage listed. We want to make sure it's activated. We want to make sure that part of Thornley is activated. Thornley is the home of baseball for the state, so it's lovely to have them all in one location. And I don't know we'd do anything else with the house, to be honest, if they weren't using it. So I'm very supportive of a peppercorn lease and Baseball WA having a long-term tenancy in this location. I think it works for the city and it seems to work well for them.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Good.
Yes, I just want to endorse the comments of the Deputy Mayor there. It's great to have seen the house being so well renovated and the money's being spent. When I first saw it many, many moons ago and it was in such a dilapidated state, to see it being rebuilt and refurbished and just looking so good, it was a good decision. And of course that whole area, as you said, Baseball WA do a great job looking after the area. So it's great that we could do this and see the improvements to that Tom Bateman house. So again, I endorse your comments. They're an excellent building. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Good. Any further debate or questions on this item? Councillors, will you please cast your vote? Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on, item 13.3.3, the playground at Sutherlands Park Reserve C. Can I get a mover? Councillor Dewhurst to move that. Councillor Williamson to second it. Councillor Dewhurst? No? Councillor Williamson? Any other debate or questions on this item? No? Councillors, please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. Item number 13.4.1, the History and Heritage Advisory Group, 7th December meeting. Can I get a mover for this, please? Councillor Adams to move this. Councillor Dewhurst to second it. Any questions on this item, councillors? Any debate? No? If you could please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on to 13.4.2, the Grants Program, Festivals and Events. Can I get a mover for this? Councillor Williamson to move. Councillor Baines to second. Councillor Williamson, you want to speak to the item? Councillor Baines? Any other? Councillor Dewhurst, thank you.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I'll talk in support of this as well. The question I've got for Director of Community Engagement is that I love going to a lot of events and particularly when there's food there. So, but I'm not sure what Nepalese people actually cook. So if the Director could please let me know, and I'd just like to get my taste buds ready for the time. Thank you.
No, I don't think that was that actually a question?
I was going to say momos because they seem to reference momos.
No. Nepalese food, likely. Yes. Deputy Mayor Hort, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, no notice on this, apologies, but how much does the colour run normally cost us that we run? We've run, I think, 2 or 3 times now in the last 4 years.
Thank you, Director Blake.
It would probably be about $25,000 from my memory of the last time we ran it. The most expensive aspect is getting all the colour in.
Colour together. and that doesn't take into consideration all the time of the city staff, I'm assuming, in planning it and all that kind of thing as well. Yeah.
No, you're correct.
And so from what I can see in this event is essentially where we've got a Holi celebration, a celebration of colour around the same time, for $20,000. So it's money well spent, I think, to partner with local community groups, to work with their passion, their volunteers, to make occasions like this occur. I think it works really well for everyone, and I think it's really good use of ratepayers' money. It's a really big grant. It made me really nervous approving it in the first place, but I think this is a really good example of how it works and how it may actually, in the long run, mean that we can focus on other things with ratepayer money, knowing that the community is running these events, things that they're so passionate about. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further debate or questions on this item? No. Councillors, will you please cast your vote? Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on to 13.5.1, the financial activity statement for December 2023. Can I get a mover? Councillor Dewhurst, Councillor Good to second. Any debate or questions on this item, councillors? No? If you could please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you. That has been carried. Item 13.5.2, the payment of accounts for December 2023. Can I get a mover? Councillor Good to move. Councillor McDonald to second. Any questions or debate on this item, councillors? You please cast your vote. Thank you. That has been carried. Moving on to 13.5.3, the budget variation for the reimbursement from the Southern River Precinct 3A North Outline Development Plan Reserve. Can I get a mover? Councillor Adams to move, Councillor Williamson to second. Councillor Adams, would you like to speak to this item? Councillor Williamson, any further debate or questions on this item? Councillors, will you please cast your vote? Thank you, that has been carried. Moving on to 13.5.4, the appointment of a delegate to the Local Emergency Management Committee and the History and Heritage Advisory Group. Get a mover for this. Councillor Deputy Mayor Hort to move, Councillor Dewhurst to second. Calling for nominees for the Local Emergency Management Committee. Do we have any? Councillor Dewhurst.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I just put the dog on the table. I don't think we should have a councillor going to it because it has no effect in regards to how we're operating as a city. It's one of those regulations that the state throws in that we must have a meeting and everyone turns up and has a little chat. And being a part of the committee myself, when I first joined the council, I quickly got out of it because it was literally a waste of an hour or 2 hours of your time to come because nothing's effectively achieved. However, in saying that, I do believe that there is a role for emergency management local schemes and in the bush areas and the rural areas, most certainly, because they're all working together and it's very effective. But I don't think it's not very effective here in the city of Gosnells, in the metropolitan area, because realistically, if anything ever happens, you're going to ring the fireys or the police or the ambos, whatever, and we're just probably an agency for recovery. That's all we are. So, and we'll just supply anything that we're asked for anyway, whether we're on the team or not. I understand we have to be on the team, but I'm just saying that perhaps if the councillors have the wish or whatever to not to waste anyone's time to go on it, maybe the director could go on our behalf, which he goes anyway. So we'll waste his time instead. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dewhurst. So what I'll do is we'll open the floor for nominations, and if there are no nominations, then the position gets left vacant, I guess. Are there any nominations for the Local Emergency Management Committee? There are no nominations for the Local Emergency Management Committee. The second recommendation is that Council appoints someone to fill the vacancy on the History and Heritage Advisory Group. Are there any nominations for this? Councillor Baines.
I would like to nominate someone, please.
Go for it, thank you.
For that group, I would like to nominate Mayor Lyons to be the member and Councillor Zhang to be the deputy.
Thank you, Councillor Baines. I'm happy to accept that nomination. Are there any further nominations for the position and the deputy? Any further for the deputy? No? Okay. Councillor Zhang, are you happy to accept that role? Thank you. So the staff recommendation will be that there are the council does not appoint a councillor to fill the vacancy on the Local Emergency Management Committee, and for the staff recommendation 2, that the council appoints Mayor Lyons as the delegate and Councillor Zhang as the deputy delegate to fill the vacancy on the History and Heritage Advisory Group. Councillors can cast your vote. Did you want to speak to it, did you?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a question. You had a History and Heritage Group meeting last week,
Yes.
and obviously we've passed the minutes for that. Will the future agendas come out on our systems to know that when it's coming up, if there's a meeting? The reason why I asked that is because I didn't know it was on last week, and I probably would have gone as an observer. I've previously been on History and Heritage Groups and actually wanted to continue, but the previous councillor who was here put his hand up first, and I thought, well, fair enough, he wants to have a go at it. But I actually have always enjoyed it. I thought, well, if I had known it was on, I probably would have turned up. So I just wondered, can you make sure they're publicised?
I believe we can, but also just to let you know, they have a set date to meet, which is the first Thursday of the month at 9 a.m. in the morning.
Every month?
Every month. Every second month.
Has it changed it, has it?
Every second month.
Yeah.
9 a.m. on the first Thursday of every second month.
Normally it was 9:15, but it changed to 9, okay.
It's 9 a.m. so you can get a coffee first. But we can make that public on the Big Tin Can Hub. Thank you. Is there any further debate or questions on this item? Councillors, if you please cast your vote. Thank you. Thank you, that has been carried. There are no motions of which previous notice has been given. There is no urgent business, no confidential matters, and I declare the meeting closed at 7:53. Thank you very much, councillors. Thank you to the ladies and gentlemen in the gallery, and thank you to listeners at home. Thank you. Thank you, staff too. Councillor Adams, bye-bye.